And hello YouTube, this is Thomas Judge back once again with another short YouTube reading guide series. Today is the first of 4 videos that are going to walk through the correct reading order of the Invincible Comics universe by Robert Kirkman and his Skybound imprint. To create this reading guide, I have read the 252 comic issues that comprise the entire Invincible universe, including the essential spin-offs and tie-ins, and I've used that knowledge to build the internet's most detailed reading map for this particular line of superhero comics. So to start with, what is Invincible? Invincible is an American comic book series written by Robert Kirkman, illustrated by Cory Walker and Ryan Ottley, and published by Image Comics. Set in the wider Image universe, at least to an extent, and we'll discuss that later, Invincible follows the coming of age of superhero Mark Grayson, or the titular Invincible, who is a Viltrumite and the son of Omni-Man. Omni-Man is the most powerful person on the planet and basically seems very similar, at least at first, to DC's Superman. The series begins as Mark being a normal high school senior with a normal part-time job and otherwise normal life until he reaches round about the age of 17, at which point he begins to display superpowers which come from his father, given that his father is a member of the alien Viltrumite race. So the series began publication on January 22nd, 2003, concluding in February 2018 with issue 144. And there's been a television series adaptation recently, which began streaming on Amazon Prime in March this year, 2021. It's been critically acclaimed and it's been greenlit for a further 2 seasons, so it'll be 3 seasons in total. So far, so good. But then why bother with a reading guide, let alone a 4-video one? Surely this is just 144 issues from issue 1 to issue 144. What's the big deal? Well, that's only partly true. You see, Invincible itself might be 144 issues, and as it turns out, that's not actually true, as it's really 146 issues. But as well as that, there are several other series set in the Invincible shared comic universe that cross over and intersect with the main story in reasonably intertwined, if not essential, ways. In other words, there are around 106 other issues that you're going to want to read if you're a huge Invincible fan and you want the entire picture. In addition to that, there are actually several other series, and we're talking almost 100 issues in total here, that feature Invincible briefly or have cameos from him as well. And the reason I know about these is because the few online resources that there are about reading guides for Invincible often mention these other series, but as it turns out, these other series really are not part of the Invincibiliverse and were a wasted effort on my part to read. As such, I'm going to also include them here as a cautionary warning to other comic fans who might have been told the same things and might think that you have to chase these particular series down. That's not the case. So what I'm going to do in this guide is this. I'm going to make 4 videos, which I'll drop on 4 consecutive days. The first one is this one, today, and it's going to be of the core Invincible series only. The second one will be just some live footage of me giving you guys an overview of my physical hardcover collection of this series. The third video will discuss all the various Invincible spin-offs, of which there are many, and talk you through the reading map that I've made to see where and when they fit in. The fourth and final video will discuss the few other series that are often mentioned as tie-ins and crossovers for Invincible, and we'll have a look at how true those claims are. Spoiler warning and final warning, I keep my guides pretty spoiler free, but I can't make any promises. Sometimes certain trade paperback titles or essential bits of information are needed to understand the reading map. And whilst I try to minimize that, if you're the sort of person who is acutely sensitive to even the faintest of spoilers, this is your spoiler warning. Whilst this video and the next one are pretty safe, video 3 will definitely have some spoilers, and I will reiterate this warning there as well. So, with no further ado, here is my Invincible reading map. Actually, wait, that's for the full Invincible Comics universe. Invincible itself is just the core series in the middle, so let's look at just that. And there you can see it's just a really simple, straightforward line there. Don't worry, like always, the reading map I'll be talking about is available to download for free from my website, and I'll post the full map, which you can see here, and not the redacted version which we're going to talk through today, here on my website. Well, that looks pretty straightforward, and hopefully it is, so let's just dive straight into it. Let's start at the top here with this one. So the first one we can see is Volume 1, Invincible Family Matters. It collects issues 1 to 4 and is very simple and very wholesome. Then we have Volume 2, which is called 8 is Enough. This collects issues 5 to 8. It's worth noting here, issue 7, which is in this trade paperback, collects or features the first half of the twist to the plot of the storyline, which you will note happens at the end of episode 1 of the animated show. So it kind of shows you how the pacing for the comic is quite different to the animated version, as one would expect. Here, this picture of Omni-Man and Invincible back-to-back is Volume 3, Perfect Strangers, which collects issues 9 to 13. Issue 9 references capes for the first time, which is a spin-off and prequel to Invincible that we'll discuss in video 3. Issue 11 has the rest of the twist, leading into issue 12 as the first truly jaw-dropping action issue of the series. And issue 13 closes out this volume whilst also taking us to the end of the first season of the animated show. So if you are watching the animated show, or if you already watched it and you're a big fan of it, the animated show is literally these 3 trade paperbacks here, and that's it. So continuing on down, we have Volume 4, which is called Head of the Class. This collects issues 14 to 19 and the Image Summer Special, which was a free comic book day book. If you do track down the free comic book day book, it goes between issues 15 and 16. Issue 16, by the way, is our first introduction to the character of Angstrom Levy, who I hope joins the animated show next season. Okay, scrolling down, the next volume here is, with this cover of Invincible looking a little bit surprised, is Volume 5, The Facts of Life. It collects issues 20 to 22 and issue 0, and then issues 23 to 24, and then the backup stories from issue 25. It's really critical to keep in mind, issue 0 is set between issues 22 and 23. So if you're reading this in singles, that's where issue 0 goes. Let's keep heading straight down. We've got this pinkish cover here, which is called Invincible, A Different World. This is volume 6 and collects issues 25 to 30. Continuing down, we go here to volume 7, which is Three's Company. This collects issues 31 to 35 and The Pact Volume 2, issue 4. We're going to talk more about the Pact series in video 3, but if you're reading Invincible in singles, be aware that Pact Volume 2, issue 4 is a really juvenile, young adult one-shot that's hard to track down and really basically ties up a loose end about Seismic Man from issue 10. Basically, it's irrelevant, and feel free to skip it if you can't track it down, or obviously just read the trade collection and you'll just get it automatically. Okay, so continuing to move on down the list, we have Volume 8, which is my favourite Martian. This collects issues 36 to 41 and is quite a sweet relationship-focused issue, to be honest. Moving on from my favourite Martian, we've got this one here, which is Out of This World, Volume 9. This collects issues 42 to 47. It's actually kind of all filler and progress of the main characters, but still engrossing. Also, it's a great volume if you're an Alan the Alien fan. Okay, continuing on down, we've got this one here, the first of many covers where Invincible looks pretty badly beaten up. This is Invincible Volume 10, Who's the Boss, collecting issues 48 to 53, and it has quite a few key changes for the story. Continuing on down, we have Happy Days, which is Invincible Volume 11. That collects issues 54 to 57, Astonishing Wolfman issue 11, and then issues 58 and 59. That's the exact order to read them in, and we'll talk more about Astonishing Wolfman in video 3. Here, again, Invincible looking pretty badly beaten up. We've got Invincible Volume 12 called Still Standing. It collects issues 60 to 65. Now, a couple of points here. This is a really critical volume for the story. Within this volume, it has something referred to, in continuity at least, as the Invincible War. I won't go into what that is, but it's important. And it also has the Battle with Conquest. I won't go into what that is, but it's very important. Now, the former, the Invincible War, is rushed. The latter, the Battle with Conquest, is mind-blowing. That's all I'm going to say. By the way, in the Invincible War, we see cameos from everyone in the Image universe. Darkness, Witchblade, Cyberforce, Pit, Spawn, you name it. However, those cameos are really just small incidental panels in the background, like blink and you miss them sort of thing. So please don't think, if you go elsewhere and you read up on reading orders, that you need to understand Darkness, Witchblade, Pit, Spawn, any of that sort of stuff if you want to read this. They literally just cameo fleetingly. Also, it's worth noting that within this volume, the character of Atom Eve references the events of a spin-off series called Invincible Presents Atom Eve, and we're going to discuss that in video 3 as well. Continuing on down, we have Growing Pains, which is Invincible Volume 13, collecting issues 66 to 70, and the Invincible Returns one-shot. If you've been keeping count, it's the existence of this important one-shot, Invincible Returns, and issue 0, several trade paperbacks ago, that means Invincible is actually a total of 146 issues, not 144. Okay, continuing on down, we have this volume here, very cool looking cover, which is called the Viltrumite War. That collects issues 71 to 78. Don't believe the hype from the name. I wanted a bit more from this. Continuing on down, we've got volume 15, Get Smart, which collects issues 79 to 84. This also references events from the Guarding the Globe volume 1 series many times, and again, we'll discuss that in video 3. I should point out that every time it references something from another series, don't worry about it. You can just read Invincible in one go as long as you're relatively relaxed and what I call a type J reader about it. Okay, continuing on down, we have Family Ties, which is Invincible Volume 16, that collects issues 85 to 90. That is followed by What's Happening, which is Invincible Volume 17. Yes, Invincible's on the cover of this. Yes, he's now black. Yes, it makes sense to the storyline. Yes, you should definitely read it. Like I say, it collects issues 91 to 96 and is followed by this, which is Invincible Volume 18. This collects issues 97 to 102. It's called The Death of Everyone, which is, I'm not really sure if it's a misnomer or not, but the story itself felt a little bit underwhelming. Okay, continuing on, we then have this volume, which is volume 19, called The War at Home. It collects issues 103 to 108, has a fascinating cliffhanger ending, and picks up a variety of threads that have been foreshadowed across the entire series. So it's actually really, really interesting and good. Moving on, we then have Invincible Volume 2, the ironically titled Friends, which collects issues 109 to 114. I say it's ironically titled because it includes an event which polarized many of the fans. I'm not going to get into the rights or wrongs of it here, and it's not the only event within Invincible that polarized a lot of the fans, but suffice to say, please read this prefaced by a bit of a content warning. Okay, continuing on, we have this volume of Invincible, which is called Modern Family, collects issues 115 to 120. That's followed by this one, which is called Reboot, collects issues 121 to 126. And then that's followed by this one, which is volume 23, Full House, collecting issues 127 to 132. If we then scroll down to the next two, we'll see here the End of All Things Part 1 and the End of All Things Part 2. Those are the final two trade paperback collections. That's volume 24 and 25 respectively. And volume 24 collects issues 133 to 138. Volume 25 collects issues 139 to 144. Issue 144 is a very oversized issue that wraps up everything in the series. In fact, jumping several hundred years into the future and sort of jumping around to give you a huge sense of scale and galactic scope and really wrap things up extremely thoroughly and comprehensively. Let's just pan out and have a quick look at the map. There you are. That's the whole thing, nice and simple and straightforward. Pretty straightforward for the non-obsessive normal fan. In video 3, we're going to talk about the 106 spin-off issues that you can see here, which we'll talk about in a fair bit of detail. But for now, I just want to wrap up by talking about the collector's editions that are available to purchase if you want to buy these either digitally or physically. So when buying these series, your options are as follows. 1, buy it as single issues. And if that's your route, I hope the details in this overview helped. 2, buy them as trades. And again, I'm hoping that the images in this map, which were the cover images from the trade paperback, helped you there. Note that there are 25 trades. Your third option is to buy them as compendiums. Now, these are huge soft cover collections that are standard size. I will stress that. They're not oversized in any way. These are the exact same size as a trade paperback on your shelf. They're just much, much, much thicker. They also collect the entire series in 3 extremely thick volumes. Volume 1 collects the first 9 trade paperbacks. Volume 2 collects trade paperbacks 10 to 17. And Volume 3 collects from 18 all the way through to the end. The way they're collected and the way I describe them as being collected by trade paperback is because the compendiums genuinely collect the trade paperbacks, including any spin-offs or extras or things like Astonishing Wolfman or The Pact or the issue zeros and so on. It has them all in there in the right sequence. So they're a decent way, if you're on a budget, to collect and read Invincible. However, that does leave two types of physical collection left to discuss. These are the Ultimate Editions. Here's a picture of them here. This isn't a picture from my collection. This is a picture from a video that I will link to in the next video's description, but I'm also going to do an overview next time. And also you can collect them as library editions. Here's a picture of them here. Library editions, highly recommended. I have all three of them, and I'm going to do an overview in tomorrow's video. Anyway, so we'll talk all about that next time. And in the video after that, we'll be diving into the full Invincible reading map that I teased at the start. As always, everyone, this map is available on my website for you to download free of charge. If you want to download it or print it out to follow along, please do. It covers 252 issues. I also have several other detailed YouTube reading guides, for example, for the DC New 52 and 31 installments, and feel free to check those out. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter, where I tend to post a one-tweet daily review, whatever I've read that day. And given that I read on average around half a dozen comic issues a day, it's a great way to see what I'm up to and to get an idea for what future videos are in the pipeline. If you want to support the channel, it's easy. Head over to Amazon and pick up the first volume of my pro superhero novel, No Gods or Kings. It costs less than $1. It's free if you have Kindle Unlimited, and a free excerpt of the first book can be found on the same website as this reading map, which is nogodsorkings.com. The link is in the description below. So until next time, everyone, stay classy.